Hello nerds! Today I'm going to be showing you how to use WeaponMechanicsCosmetics trail feature. So right now I have the projectile set to invisible, which means we can't see it. Gee. Alright, this is boring. Let's fix it. We're going to go straight into config and we have this trail option ready for us. I'm going to jump over to the wiki and we're going to set it aside. Alright, so the trail, it's got this most important option, distance between particles. The most common issue I see people do is set it to a tiny number, like 0.1. Anything less than, let's say 0.2, maybe 1.5, you're just gonna crash your players because there's too many particles. I recommend a number more like 0.4. I think that's a pretty good spot. All right, hide trail 4. Now, by default, this is actually a pretty good number. I'm going to set it to 0 so you can see the issue, and then we'll fix it later. So 0 is a bad number, but we'll fix that later. Shape, we're going to set that to line for now. Particle chooser, we'll say loop. It doesn't matter right now because we're only going to define one particle. So now over here, we have a list of particles. And the wiki isn't too clear on what that is until you scroll down and click on the particle mechanic. And then you are taken to the mechanics wiki, which shows you some examples. Right, so we're going to try this flame particle. Save. And now in-game, we can reload the plugin. And would you look at that fire? All right, so here's the problem. Hide trail 4. Notice how the fire is right in my face. It's so far in my face that it's actually blocking my vision. If I change this number to, let's say 1.25, now the fire isn't in my face. So if you set this to a number like 5, the trail will spawn 5 blocks away from your player. All right, that's the most basic trail you can have. Let's move on. Now, what happens when we want to use multiple particles? In this case, we just add on to the list. Let's add on a more complicated particle. Let's go for the dust color transition. And this particle requires a starting color, which we'll say is red, and a fade color, which is green. These are hex codes. You can check out the wiki for more information. Now, if we save this and go back into the game, we should see a mix of particles. That can be a bit hard to see, but you can see the blue particles fading. They start at red and fade to blue, just as we want them to. All right, but right now that's kind of mixed. And let's say we want it loops too perfectly. Let's say we want it to be random. All right, well, in that case, we switch this to random. So what's the difference? When you have it set to loop, your trail goes through the list. It starts here, it goes through the first element, and then it goes to the second one, and then once it reaches the end, it goes on to the next particle, or it restarts. So it goes to the first element, second one, restart, first, second, restart. So now if you go to random, instead of looping through the particles in an order, it will randomly select one of the particles from the list. Now, I don't think we'll be able to see the difference, but let's try. Yeah, I can't see the difference. If you guys can, great on you. That's a little bit more observable when you have like 10 particles. But I'm not going that crazy. Now, what about stop? I'm going to copy and paste this particle a few times so we can actually see this effect. So what happens is we go through the first one, and then the second one, and then third, fourth, fifth, and then once we reach this last particle, we stop switching particles. And we just loop on this last particle over and over until the projectile stops. So let's test that. Shoot. We see our few fire particles and then just the dust transition particles. Right, pretty cool. I simplified the particles to just use crit. Now let's say we want to add a shape, maybe a spiral. In this case, we have to use shape data. For the spiral, we have to use radius, points, and loops. We're going to go with a 1 block radius, so that way our trail is 2 blocks wide. We're going to say 16 points, and we'll have 1 loop to start. So points just defines how detailed your circle is. A big number like 1000 will be super detailed, but you probably won't even see the circle complete by the time your projectile ends. So a number like 16 through 32 is probably what you want. Well, nothing showed up. This is a great time to check console. A mistake was found when making trail. We're missing required config option shape data. Ah, I spelled it wrong. All right, save and reload. That's a pretty clear spiral effect. But now what if we wanted to have multiple spirals at the same time? That's what this loops option is good for. I'm going to spawn 4 spirals. I'm also going to turn this number up to 32, so it's a little bit more detailed. And now, you see we have 4 spirals, and it forms a tube. Pretty cool. I made this quick Desmos demonstration to show you how the points work. So when we have 16 points, we can see we have 16 blue circles on this red circle. So each blue circle corresponds to a particle spawned. So if we turn this number up, we get super detailed circles. You almost can't tell the difference. But the downside to this is that it requires more resources and it stretches out the trail. So you tend to want to fit your number into a smaller range, like 32. So you still have this distance, this gap between particles, and that's fine. It's Minecraft. You're not going to get a perfect circle. That's not what Minecraft was built for. Now, if you're a deranged lunatic, you're going to love the polar option. The polar option lets you specify the exact shape by using a function. All right, what does that mean? So, this one takes function, points, loops, and cache. I notice that the wiki has been wrong for the past few months and no one has told me. What? Okay, we'll fix that. Either way, we want cache to be true. But let's explain why. If we go into Desmos and we define a shape, I'm going to use 2 sine theta. Nah, 2 sine 2 theta. That's the shape we want. All right. Since this goes around and ends in the center, we want cache to be true. But if you just said something like theta, or 0.1 times theta, you see how it doesn't end in the center? In that case, we want to use cache equals false. But we're using sine 2 theta, so we want cache to be true. We also want to turn up the points a little bit, maybe to 48, so that way we can see this flower effect a little bit better. So let's go back into code. Cache is true. We'll keep loops on 4. Points is 48. And now function is that string, 2 times sine of 2 times theta. We save, and we test. Admittedly, it's a bit hard to see. but you do have that flower effect. If we wanted to make that a bit easier to see, we could turn up this points value. We'll try 96. And I'll also turn loops down to 2. I think I'll also increase the radius a little bit to 3 times 2 sine theta. And now, it's pretty dramatic. That was kind of cool, actually. Okay. Yep, that's the feature for psychopaths. I built it just for you. Alright. Enough insulting my clients. Everyone, enjoy the trail feature. Have fun with it. Make some cool shapes.